Hello and welcome to this unboxing video and first print of the Halot Mage, the brand new 8K printer from Creality. These start at about £389. I got mine for £329 in the pre-sale. We're seeing a nice 216% increase in detail over the previous 4K printers, as well as getting this 10.3-inch LCD. I've seen a lot of people really excited and appreciative of this flip lid, as well as the continuation of this activated carbon filter, and we've got the dual linear rails for really good stability on the Z-axis. You can see some overall specs here. Some of the key things are the layer height staying down at 0.05 millimeters per layer, and the XY resolution at 0.029 millimeters, which is really impressive as well. And we've got a 5000 watt per centimeter squared light intensity, which is also very impressive compared to the competition. So this is where we're going to start the unboxing and where I'm going to be using my printer. You can see here the box that it arrives in, and as with the other printers, it comes with these two plastic clips on the side. So we just have to pop each of those out, and then that frees up the top section of the box there for removal. So you can see we've got a decent amount of foam in there. There's some foam in that top section which you don't see in the clip there, as well as some cellophane on the inside just to help protect it from moisture and dust and other bits and pieces during transit. So I found here that the foam's obviously quite secure in there, so I had to tear that apart just to be able to simply remove that. But we're not going to need that again, so that's no issue. And the cellophane, as you can see there, is sellotaped at the bottom of the printer, so I have to just gently place that on its back and grab a pair of scissors to cut that. And then in a second we're just going to fold that around so that when we pop it back on the base we can pull that off nice and easily. You see it's quite a clean setup on the bottom there. It's all contained with a nice secure bottom plate. I've seen some printers where there's nothing on that bottom, and then they're obviously liable to get knocked around and damaged. And you can see that nicely just lifts off there now. So next we've got the cellophane that's stuck to the lid, so enjoy that. Worth saying as well, you can see on the corners there of the lid there's two magnets, so when you push the lid down that does secure quite nicely. And let's have a look at what we've got inside there. So we've got this pack here that's got a spare FEP, and it's also got the sheet to do the calibration of the build plate. And if we take off this top piece of foam here, we've got a few bits and pieces inside. So we've got this pack which we'll open up and show later. We've got the power cable, which is a standard power lead. We've got a filter tube to attach to the back of the carbon filter if you want to route that somewhere. And then you can see now we've got down to the build plate and the resin bath. So let's take a look at what we've got in this pack here. So you can see to start with we've got a metal scraper. We've got a quick intro and startup guide, as well as an after sales service pack. We've got a set of Allen keys for adjustments. Random bit of foam, not really sure what that one's for. And we've got a plastic scraper as well. Then we've got a memory stick, so this comes with some files pre-installed on it, and then you can use that to transfer your files from your PC to the printer. And then just there we've got some filters so that when you're tipping your resin back into the bottles you don't get any bits going back in there. And finally just a little QA card from Creality. So looking at the back here, you can see at the top there the carbon filter outlet and the power inlet and switch at the back. So we had a look here to see if we could remove the build plate, but unfortunately, with the way that it comes packaged, you can't quite remove that, so you do have to turn it on and raise that up to get that off. But that's understandable with them trying to fit as much as possible in a small package. So we're going to go ahead and connect the power lead at the back here, and then we'll turn this round and look at switching that on. So it does take a few seconds to switch on here. There is a small break in the footage because I actually forgot to switch it on at the mains, but the amount of time that you're seeing there is pretty representative of how long it takes to boot up. You can see we go straight to a menu screen here, so no little Creality boy like some of the old ones, although that they may add that back in with some firmware updates for the printer. And you can see we've got a manual adjustment here with a home, a stop, and manual raise settings with 10mm, 1mm, and 0.1mm values that you can select. And then the arrow in the bottom right is just to return back to the main menu. So we've hit the home button, and you can see that the build plate is now moving up the Z-axis. This is about the quickest it moves during that home adjustment. It will move quicker than this when you're running a build file, and you can see there just how you select the different height adjustments there. So we'll just have a look at the inside. You can see we've got the resin bath there with the FEP in, and you can see the linear rails there and the thread to raise the height, as well as the carbon filter on the back upper right there of the image. So this is the sheet that comes in with the FEP. So it's got some instructions on how to calibrate the build plate. It's worth saying those aren't actually correct to the current firmware installed on the machine, although in the quick start guide they are correct. But an interesting discrepancy there. So you can just ignore those and follow the quick start guide. So we'll remove the resin bath. You can see it was just a couple of quick screws there, and we've got some nice little 500mm and 1000mm markers there, so you can see how much resin you've tipped in, or how much you've got remaining. So now we've got that off, we're just going to place that calibration sheet, which is basically a sheet of paper, over the LCD screen to protect that, and I guess it adds the height in there as well to take into account the FEP. And then we're going to take the largest of the Allen keys and just loosen off the build plate there. These are supposed to come pre-calibrated, but you know, better safe than sorry for the sake of 2 minutes. So it's a lefty loosey righty tighty as with most bolts, although I forget that to start off with. It's a little confusing when you're going to side, it's easy to get them mixed up. So we just loosen those off so they're hand loose, loosen them a little bit more, and then you should be able to move the build plate like that. Now we're going to go back into the settings, into the tool menu, and into the manual adjustment menu, and just hit the home button there. And we can see what happens in a second. So I've sped this up so you're not sat there watching it for 30 seconds. You can see it hits top home twice. There's a little light sensor on there that you'll see later. And then it comes down all the way to the bottom. So this is why it's important to have those loosened off so you don't crack the LCD. And put a bit of light pressure on the build plate and just tighten those up by hand. Ideally you do them in a diagonal pattern. I didn't do that here, but I did do that with the Allen key. So it's important to do these up reasonably tight so the build plate doesn't move around either when you remove it or whilst your build is taking place. See, I forgot the direction again there. Now we're just going to hit home again because that's an easy way to raise the height. So now we've done that, we're going to put the FEP and resin bath back on there. There's some nice hard stops at the back to give it a really positive location. And once you've done that, you just tighten up the hand screws. just to secure that down onto the printer. Just a quick look here inside the quick start manual there. You can see we've just got some instructions on how to calibrate it and also some basic specs, although these are pretty much the same as what you'll be able to pick up on the website. So for our first print today, we're just going to use some standard Creality grey resin. So at the point now, it's really important just to get that PPE on, so some goggles and some nylon or nitrile gloves rather, and we're going to spray a bit of PTFE lubrication on the FEP just to help prevent any sticking. And then we're going to, once that's dried up, we're going to pour in the resin there. So I've put in just under 500 ml there because the first build shouldn't require too much. And you can see we've got the memory stick in the USB port there, and you can just scroll through the files on that memory stick and click the one you want. So the one we're going to print here is a Berserker file that comes pre-set up and pre-supported on the memory stick with the printer. And we just hit the play button once that's selected, and it processes the file, and then it'll start to move, as you'll see in a second. You can see in the bottom right there is some options where you can adjust some print settings, although these seem to be quite limited, more so than with previous Halo 1 and other Halo series printers, but maybe that'll be increased and improved upon in a future firmware update. And you see the build plates coming down now, and you'll see it start to submerge into the resin in a few seconds. So this is real speed here. It's worth saying that the printer settings that come on this file from Creality are relatively conservative, so there's a 40-second cure time for the base layers and a 6-second delay on light off. So as a result, this model, which is about 180mm tall, took about 18.5 hours to print. I did do a print after this though with some more aggressive settings on a different model, and I estimate with those settings we could have reduced the build time for this 18cm model down to about 12 hours, which isn't too bad as far as I understand it. So now that we've got the print, we're going to remove the build plate. So there's just a hand screw on the top there which secures that down, so you just loosen that off. And then you can see the model we've got there. This had been left for about 20 minutes just to allow any excess liquid resin to drip off back into the vat. And then we're going to try and place this in this tub, and you'll see me struggle to figure out how to do that because it's quite a sizable model. And there's some quite delicate features on there with the arrows as well. So there we go. So normally with the wash and cure station that I've got there, which is also a Creality product, you'd be able to just place the build plate on the top. Although I don't have enough alcohol to fill it all the way up, so I'm going to remove the model. You can see it comes off the build plate really easily there, just with a plastic scraper that I bought off Amazon. And then we're just going to submerge that in the isopropyl alcohol as well. You can see I don't even have enough to cover this model. Really underestimated how much I'd need. So I did 2 wash stages. So one with this way up and then just flipped it the other way up just to make sure we clean all that resin off. So we've got a sealable lid on there for this station as well, just to contain that alcohol, stopping it evaporating or splashing out. And then you have to place the lid on. There's some sort of sensor on there, so you can't run the wash and cure station without that lid on. So for this model I just did a quick 2-minute wash each way up. And you can see now we've hit play, it starts to use the magnetic turbine on the bottom just to really mix that alcohol up and aggravate the liquid resin there, making sure we get as much off as possible. You can see the a little bit of the vortex and the rippling on the surface there as it does that, and we've sped up the wash time there. So you get the idea. I won't show you it the other way up. We'll just crack on to the next stage. So we do have the cure station there as well. So we just have a magnetic turntable there just to get a really comprehensive cure all the way around the model. And you can see it would fit on like this, although from general advice I've seen online, people tend to prefer to remove the supports pre-curing, as it's a bit easier and it leaves less of a residue on the model. So we're going to crack on with that. So this is my first ever resin print. So you can see I'm taking my time here. I'm trying to be quite careful because this is quite a delicate model in a number of areas. I tended to find pulling them at a slight angle or twisting them was the best way to get these off, as obviously they're designed to work in tension, so pulling them down doesn't work. So if you've got any tips for this, feel free to leave them in the comments. You know I'm a real newbie at this, so I'm sure there's some of you out there watching this video who have a lot more experience than I do. I've also heard that warm water is a good way to go, so I haven't tried it on this model, but that's something I'll definitely consider for a future build. So I will say it was quite easy generally to remove the supports. It was quite delicate and there were a lot on there, but in terms of actually removing them from the model themselves, that wasn't too bad. I must confess I did accidentally snap a couple of those arrows on the base, even though I was being really careful. Although I think because they're underneath and behind her, it almost fits in thematically with the fact that she probably broke them as she was moving forward, especially with that blindfold. So I noticed there were quite a few delicate and really tiny supports in there for different things around the feet, around the hair, around the head, which I couldn't really get my fingers into. So I used that scalpel just to help pry them off. Not so much for cutting, but just something that I could get in there quite easily. So you can see here I've managed to get most of them. There are a few that I found a bit later, and there are a few underneath the skirt that I just left because unless you're looking up a skirt, you can't really see them. And now we've got that model without the supports, we're just going to pop that on the cure station and let that cure. So I must say I'll do another video on this wash and cure station. So if you're interested in that, you can see a little bit more on it. But I'm very happy with it. It's really nice and easy, and didn't really require any setting up. You just had to take it out of the box and plug it in. So I did a 5-minute cure on this because it's a solid model, so in my head that seemed right, and I haven't really seen any guidance on good or bad cure lengths. So it seemed pretty good after this. There wasn't really any stickiness left on the resin as far as I could tell, although on further inspection the bottom of the base did seem a bit sticky, which is understandable because it's on the base. So after this I did lie it down and off the turntable and just let that cure the base as well. So you can see here there's a really great amount of detail across the whole figure. I was really impressed with this. You can see there's a little bit of abrasion on the underside of the cape, so I think that was me trying to get the supports off. I didn't quite appreciate how soft the resin still was before you did the final cure. So I don't think that's necessarily representative of the prints, but that's more my treatment of it. But you can see now, like, there's a really lovely level of detail on this. I was really, really impressed. I think some of the things that really stood out to me on this were the fur that you can see on the boots and around some of the other areas of the model. You can see some textures on the cloth there, and you can see some really great detail on the rocks, and the arrows are really, really delicate. So I was really impressed by that too. You can see all the texture on the cape, and there's so much detail on those hair strands, and you can see them all floating up at all sorts of angles. So that was really impressive to me. And you can even see on this blindfold here, there's quite a good, quite a nice texture from the cloth. So we'll move on to some static images in a few seconds, and you can really see the level of detail a little bit better when there's not a moving camera. So moving on to a few things just to keep in mind. The latest version of HaloBox at the time of this video online is 3.5, but you do get a version 4 on the memory stick, although this is quite buggy still. So as you can see here, if you reopen a project, then the model and the supports don't come in the same place. Neither of them are in the place that they were left when I saved the project. And on top of that, the printer seems to require a DLPV4 file type, which is different, and the only support for that at the moment is on that version 4 of HaloBox. So an older version of HaloBox or Chitubox don't work with that, so that's particularly disappointing, considering you get this 3-month VIP Chitubox Pro for free, and you can't actually use it for the printer, so that's a bit disappointing. So hopefully that gets fixed over the next couple of weeks. So thanks a lot for watching the video. Please subscribe, like, and comment if you've got any tips below. That would really help me out, and I look forward to hearing from you and sharing some more things with you as I go on my journey. Bye.